It's yet another Damascus Encounter program and another moment when we share very beautiful and interesting stories of children of God, how they encountered Jesus. I always would say there is no single formula by which you can determine how God calls his children, but he chooses his own way. And today we have a beautiful story to share. I have with me in the studio a child of God, a Seventh-day Adventist, someone who grew up and by chance, God's own way, becoming Seventh-day Adventist. Yet she is a child of God and she'll be sharing her story with us. I want you to welcome with me to the studio, Professor Yemisi Babalola. Professor Babalola, you're welcome to the Damascus Encounter.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Your story is one beautiful story and very unique in its own way because God called you in a very unique manner. Do you want to share with us a little bit of growing up and how the home you grew up in and how you first had encounter with Seventh-day Adventism?
All right. Thank you very much. I was born into a non-Adventist family.
Okay.
My parents were, they attended one gospel church. I don't remember the name now. My father used to sing. He sang alto and played trombone, so I grew up singing with him, sort of. But I think that was about it. That was all about it. We were churchgoers, more or less.
Okay.
But with time, I found that I loved singing a lot and I loved church. But I ended up moving away from home to live with my aunt, who happened to be a Seventh-day Adventist.
So that's how you encountered Seventh-day Adventism?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's talk about your singing, just a little bit about singing and what singing means to you. I know you're a good singer and one of those beautiful voices. So tell me, what is it that is thrilling about singing for you?
Well, I can remember as far back as when I was like 5. And I'm somebody, or I was a child that loved to, visit a lot with family members, friends. Okay. I could just pack my bag and say I would follow anybody that came around. So I ended up with one of our aunts, distant aunts. She was in the choir then, and they sang this song in our church, Surely Goodness. By the time I came back from holiday, I could sing almost all the verses, even as a child. So my father knew the song, and my siblings were like, this singing girl, that was my song for that period. Okay. So I realized I loved singing. And even much later, when I got to my aunt, the Adventist family, the choir of Okibola Church, was one of the best experiences I had growing up in the Adventist church. I was always looking forward to the time the choir would render a special song. It got to a point that I would always listen out to the first line, and I would quickly check it out in the hymnal. If it's in the hymnal, I would sing through with them. I might end up singing soprano, alto, bass together, but I would sing, And how did I join the choir? I remember one Saturday afternoon like that, there was this song the choir sang, Forever Stands the Bulwarks of God's Truth. Okay. I'd never heard it before, but I was fortunate I picked the first line that day. And as soon as they finished singing, it's got stuck in my subconscious. I didn't know. Okay. But when I got home in the afternoon and everybody was sleeping, I was about the house just singing my normal rounds of singing. And my guardian Baba came out and was like, where did you hear that song from? Sing it again. I thought I'd disturbed the sleep. Okay. But I said, no, you need to sing that song again. So I sang the song and I was like, have you learned it somewhere before now? I said, no, that was the song they sang in church. How did you learn it? I told him I just listened and I got the first line and I was singing through. He said, if I don't allow you to join the choir, God will hold it against me. Wow. Would you like to join the choir? I said, sure. And that was how I ended up in the choir.
Interesting, interesting. So let's get back to the main story. and which is exactly how you came to be. So from a non-Adventist background,
Sure.
you visited your aunt,
Yeah.
and then somehow you
Ended up.
ended up staying there,
Yes.
and you ended up becoming a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yes.
Kind of. So, do you want to share a little bit about those moments and you're staying with your aunt, their way of life compared to how it was back home?
Yeah.
Did you have any difficulties settling in?
Interesting. Well, I didn't really have any difficulties settling in because, like I said, I loved my aunt and I loved the setup in the home. Initially, I wasn't following them to church, maybe for like the first few months. But the first time I went was at harvest, during harvest, Thanksgiving for that year. And since then, I just loved the church. I guess the first time I went, I was expecting something out of place because it was the Sabbath.
Okay.
But I got into the church, I didn't even remember it was a Saturday. And of course, there was so much festivity because it was harvest, Sabbath day, kind of. So from that time, I got excited about going to church. And of course, the singing part was also there for me.
An attraction.
Yeah, and another attraction.
Okay, so at the end of the day, you got baptized at 14?
Yes.
Pretty much. When you look back at your getting baptized and before we get to your consciousness of Jesus Christ himself, what would you say was actually the motivation for getting baptized?
Okay. At Okibola Church, I think I had a number of people I admired, I loved, like the way of life, of course, even from home. But we had a number of people that kind of influenced me. I liked the way they live their lives. They are Tulumas, then, we used to do Bible study after service. We were waiting for choir, and I just loved. I think she was even my baptismal class teacher then. So I think it was a normal thing that after you've gone through certain stages, you end up in the baptismal class, and then when you have done 1-2 years, I think I did like 2 years there, so I'd mastered everything that was there to master, sort of. So it was just natural, for me to get baptized. That was what I thought, and I was baptized. But of course, those lessons made sense to me, and after getting my dad's permission, Baba got my dad's permission, and it was easy for me to get baptized. I made a decision actually for Christ, but I didn't really quite understand so much of that day-to-day experience that was supposed to follow that kind.
When you were getting baptized, you were away from home, now from your biological parents. So were your parents aware, your mom? Was she aware you were getting baptized?
Sure, like I said, Baba, my guardian, didn't just, Baba Oyedeji, didn't just take that decision on his own. When I told him I wanted to get baptized, he said, that is good, but we need to get your daddy's permission. So he didn't have any, problem about me getting baptized. And my mother also, because she was somehow brought up by, my guardian and his wife, so she was also open to that.
Let's talk a little bit about your flair, that love for reading.
Okay.
And we'll get to how it shaped your decision to become grounded in the Adventist faith. But before then, looking back, when would you say you actually picked that strong desire or love for reading?
Okay. Well, I think when my brother was maybe 5, my dad bought him this book, Akin Goes to School.
Okay.
I guess I wasn't reading so much then, but he used to read. Dad made him read the book, and to all of us, and I kind of enjoyed, all the stories and everything. So that kind of stirred my interest in reading. I also came to like storybooks in particular, anything that would open my mind to things that never learned before was fun. And
so when you talk about books, you had books in terms of academics, of course. There were books in terms of novels,
religious and everything.
Religious and all what have you. Did you ever have that conflict between I'm deep in reading novels and then I'm also now getting to read stuff that were Christian literature.
Definitely.
Did it bring any conflict?
Oh, a lot of conflicts. I loved reading novels. And by the time I was in senior class in the secondary school, it was a practice to exchange novels with your friends, you know. And I realized that, of course, not all the contents were healthy for the mind, especially when I began to read about Ellen White's, some of Ellen White's books, or we will have home fellowship. And I know that what I am reading is not in line with what God expects me to be feeding my mind with. That was a conflict. You know, that was.
But yet you persisted with it for a while.
Oh, yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that time when you started having the conflict inside of you. You knowing that you are supposed to be like this, or the self-consciousness of, I need to be better Christian than I am.
Okay,
What was that like?
Actually, I think that consciousness really came when after I became baptized at 14. You know, somehow I had that idea that once I'm baptized, I will become a saint, kind of. You know, but I found out that, in fact, that was when I had so many challenges. You know, conflict with my cousin, then with my great grandma who was in the house with us. I had internal conflicts, you know, a lot, and I was like almost helpless at some point that this is not who I'm supposed to be, but this is who I am. I'm not supposed to be a Christian, to be a child of God, to be pure, you know, in my thoughts and everything. But then it was not happening. Okay, and but by God's grace, you know, because we always have exposure to teachings from the Bible in form of home fellowships, in form of course, even Sabbath school lesson pamphlets, you know, had a lot of influence on me. You know, reading through the Sabbath school lesson helped a lot. And then reading Ellen White's materials, oftentimes it was as if I'm going through a challenge, she would just speak directly to that issue, as if somebody is reading my life. You know, so that really helped me, you know, to be able to see that, okay, the conflict that I'm having, they're normal, they're expected, but I'm supposed to overcome, you know, those challenges. I'm supposed to surrender, you know, to Christ. So it really was a kind of battle at some point, yeah.
Okay, then, I think at this point you can let us into the aspect, that moment, the Damascus encounter itself, when you encountered Jesus, even though you had been baptized, and now, but at some point you encountered Jesus, the Revelation seminar, everything.
Thank you. I think I was like 16 going on 17 then, when thankfully the Odeyemis, I think Dr. Tayo Odeyemi and his wife came, you know, they were fellowshipping with us, and it just felt we are ripe to have a Revelation seminar in our center then, and that myself and my cousin can also join, that we're old enough. It was exciting to be part of the whole experience. But by the time we were done, I realized that, you know, my worldview had changed. In fact, beside the knowledge that I acquired, I began to see Christianity as a lifestyle, as something that I should direct my everyday experience, not just something that happens on Sabbath day or when we are going for fellowship or whatever. So it really helped me to put a lot of things in perspective in my life. I was able to see that God actually ordered my steps into that family, that it was a deliberate act of God that I found myself in the Oyedeji's family. Before then, you know, I had all sorts of funny ideas of how I was going to live. Maybe one of those days I'll just pack my bag and say, I'm done, I think I've stayed, you know, if I want to go back home. You know, but I thank God that by the time I was, you know, I'd gone through those studies, I realized that God actually wanted me to come in contact with the Adventist message, and that it's one way of also getting that message to my own folks. Yeah.
Then I appreciate the fact that the Revelation seminar was a big turnaround, and I wonder if you can let us see exactly what was it in the Revelation seminar that was so intriguing, compelling, that stirred that consciousness of, now I have come to know Jesus the way I should.
Of course, it has different aspects. The prophetic aspects of the fact that, look, there is a point in time that we're going to have to go through certain experiences. Okay. Those were not the kind of studies that I'd been exposed to in the past. You know, I'd gone through different correspondence lessons even before that time. Okay. But this opened a different understanding onto me, and I just felt there is so much more to know about Jesus than what we had been exposed to, that what my folks even know about. And it made me to kind of begin to look forward to that time when Christ would come, when we would have even passed through all those things, you know, hoping that it would everything would be
last plagues,
exactly. So all those things, they were not just fictitious to me, kind of. They became real because they were hinged on prophecies that had happened in the past before. So I had a basis for believing that they were going to come true. And for me, that was something concrete, you know.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. And when we look into some of I just want to take from something you mentioned, that it felt to you like this is an opportunity for me to also share with my folks. So by sharing with your folks, I want to believe you're talking about your siblings at home, your family.
Yeah.
So did you ever do that?
Oh yes.
Did you share with that?
I did that. I made several efforts, and I still keep making efforts. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of them have their own, you know, perspective of things, and some of them already made their choices. But I'm still hopeful that one day they'll be able to see, you know, that all those things that I've been sharing actually are coming to pass, you know, and they'll be able to, you know, make a very positive decision.
Okay. I'm a little bit interested in your mom or your dad. Did you ever get that experience of hearing from them, almost thou made me an Adventist? Looking at you, everything that God has done for you, which we'll come to talk about soon. Did any one of them ever get to the point that that you could see they were almost would have become Seventh-day Adventists?
Oh yes, my daddy in particular, you know, because when I became convinced and converted, I had that passion to also share the message with them. And I know it was not easy. The only way, because they had a different kind of orientation, you know, to life. By then, my family had become polygamous, you know, so things had gone a bit more complicated than when we started. So, but I wouldn't relent. Because I was very close to my dad. Music was one thing that kind of connected us. Yeah, anytime I was home on holidays, we would spend Saturday, because Saturday he wouldn't. Sunday we would go to church. We go to the church, but Saturday he wouldn't go to work early, and I couldn't go to church also. So we spend quality time singing together. He even taught me how to sight read music. So I used those opportunities, you know, to, you know, insinuate some things, you know, and also whenever we had concerts, I would always invite him because I know he would always be there. And he loved Okibola choir. He loved it. It reminded him of those days when he was also growing up in the faith and was committed as a Christian, because by that time he had even stopped going to church. You know, so, but he had that passion for gospel music too. So I would always try to, you know, make, you know, a lot of suggestions like, Daddy, why don't you? So I say, well, maybe one day, you know. But that was as far as it went. He would always say that if he ever became an Adventist, it would be because he loved Adventist music.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Well done. I think it was a good thing, and I hope and pray that someday you will live to see that dream, that part of your expectation or desire fulfilled.
Amen.
Now, for some people, we get to ask them, did you ever regret joining the church? But I can see that God has been more than good to you. But then, let's put it this way. As you look back at your journey in the Adventist faith, would you trade it for any other thing, any other faith? Have you been in those positions where, oh, this I would have been able to do, but for I am Seventh-day Adventist?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think I was privileged to have been exposed to the truth early and to Christ early enough to be able to make a decision on my own. Okay. Because by the time I got into the university, I was already convinced nothing was going to move me. Even my older brother, we got into the school together and he would be like, how are you coping? Because we didn't have much and we were struggling, and he knew how his friends and classmates, the girls, how they, cope. I was not moved by anything. I learned to, be content with my life, manage myself. It was just about myself, my academics, my church, and my studies. So he found it difficult. That was because I already knew the kind of person that I am. I knew the person that was in charge of my life. I knew what I wanted out of life. So I had made my choices. It wasn't just like somebody was there directing me. I had already decided for Christ.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
So Jesus walked you all the way, and you did say at some point that you knew and understood by the time the revelation said nothing was done, that God actually ordered your steps, brought you to the family where you are. And I want to thank God that it has always been so, and God has been blessing you. Today you are married, and of course to a Seventh-day Adventist. And your family, was it like now raising kids and raising them in the Adventist faith for you?
Yes. Well, I thank God because I don't have the conflict of trying to raise a family with a non-Adventist and all of that. We're on the same page. Of course, it's still challenging because even though we are Adventists, we are Christians, we still need to accommodate each other's views of certain things, even of raising children. But God is helping us.
Today, you are a professor of information resources management, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you want to share with the viewer a little bit of God in your profession and the way you see dispensing your duties on a day-to-day basis as a teacher?
Well, I think I would like to talk about how I even got into the field in the first place. Okay. My background was in the arts, pure arts. I studied linguistics. Okay. And by the time I was done, I felt a bit of, I felt something was still missing. I was not so eager to go back and do master in the same field. Sure, okay. I wanted something different, but I didn't know what. So, of course, by God's grace, somebody came into my way. That's a friend, Mr. Obinna Isiaba. He was doing his master's in information science in UI then, and he was like, why don't you do information science? And I'm not a scientist. And it's not about scientists. And you don't need much of maths, don't worry. So I considered it, and when I went in, I realized that it was only linguistics graduates that would be admitted from the Faculty of Arts into that program. Okay. I didn't know that previously. So I was like, oh, that means God actually wanted me to be in this place. So, and subsequently, I think I can see God's leading. How I got into Babcock University, even after my master, I know it was God's own design. It wasn't that I had that plan. Okay, when I finish this, I'm going to work. No, it was just fortuitous, and it was by grace also. In my profession, I can see God's leading. Sincerely, having to manage my home, manage my personal career, manage the work, as challenging as it is, I know it's been God all the way. So my faith in God has really helped me through the turbulent times, even on the job, even in the program, because we've had challenges in the program, and it has been God leading all through. So for me, it's been God all the way.
All right, and then when we talk about becoming a professor, do people look at you and wonder, really, if you're a professor?
Of course. I get that a lot.
Okay.
People come in and they say, I'm looking for Professor Susan. And I say, please sit down. Like,
They look at you like,
so when we are done, they'll be like, I'm sorry, but I was actually expecting an elderly woman with graying hairs. I'll be like, well, you want me to show you some gray hairs on my head? You know, so I don't know how it happened, but I know it was grace that brought me thus far. Because I wasn't as if I started out planning to be a young professor. I was just doing what I thought I needed to do and doing my job. And I guess it was just grace of God.
Thank you very much for sharing your story and sharing with us on the Damascus Encounter. It's a wonderful experience, and I want to believe somebody out there has been touched and is blessed.
Amen.
It's amazing, and I just want to pray that the Lord will continue to lead you and take you from height to height as you also mold lives and bring people to Jesus.
Amen.
That will be all on today's edition of the program, the Damascus Encounter. We've had and shared with Professor Yemisi Babalola, a professor of Information Resources Management here at Babcock University, sharing her faith, how she came to know Jesus, came into the Adventist faith, and of course got baptized, but later encountered Jesus, and all the way. The testimony is Jesus has ordered my steps, and he is still ordering her steps. Perhaps you are in that position. You are thinking of what to do, and you have that nudge inside of you, something telling you something's got to change. Perhaps you want to pray and also ask God to lead you as God has led her, and he will surely lead you. Until next time, when we bring you a fresh edition of the Damascus Encounter, I want to urge you to keep looking out for Jesus and that encounter with him. Bye-bye.